I'm just going to tell one or two little key things. So him and his wonderful wife, Betsy Brantner Smith, own Winning Minds, and he is a fantastic instructor there. He's also back in the older days known as Buck Savage. But more than anything, Dave Smith was the former Pima GOP chairman. And Dave brought back together, in my mind, and I think many other people's mind, brought back the party where he got excitement, and we were really out in the streets. And Dave, thank you so much for that. And as his second vice chair, for me it was an honor to serve underneath Dave. And going forward now, we're, at least in our LD and LD19, we're a little bit on rocky grounds. But we'll see what happens with that. But anyhow, please give a very warm welcome to my friend, Dave Smith.
I'll tell you what, if any success I had, is this thing working okay? Because I can't hear that, you know. With you guys, this, I always tell everybody, look, if you want to talk about a model for the future of political activism, United Republican, you guys are it. And you know, this area, for some reason, we can't get the people who are up in Highlands or up in Del Webb or anything else to get involved. I don't know what's going on. My stepmom lives up there in Dove Mountain, Del Webb, and we go up there, we try to organize, we try to get everything going. But down here, there's a fire in your belly, and I really appreciate that, because that's why so much of my success was your success. It was you guys. When we asked for people to come text, we did what, 500,000 texts in the, and that was, and here's all these. This is for the city elections 2 years ago, and here you guys are all in there. Where the hell are the Tucson people?
That's what I want to know.
You know, have they been made helpless? You know, like Dr. Seligman's research on learned helplessness. I guess they have. You know, ever since the college kids got the vote locally in 1979, you all remember that. We were pretty bright red mostly. We had, when I was in college, yes, I know, ships were wood. I know, ships wood then? Yeah, funny. Anyway, so, but we did have revolvers. Anyway, so, but the thing was, is that, you know, the Board of Supervisors was run, you know, by a Republican. The mayor, Lou Murphy, Republican. Conrad Joyner, in fact, was not only just the head of the Board of Supervisors, he was the chairman of political science at U of A. You could set a nuclear device off right now at the University of Arizona campus and not kill a Republican. You're just not going to. It's just not. And that changed Arizona politics. You know, that's what you want to talk about the history of politics, right there is a pivot point. Flagstaff, where I grew up, was an extremely conservative, relatively, I would say, the predominant power there was both the Mormon church and the Catholic church. And being a Presbyterian, a lot of good that did me. But you know, the thing was, you know, we saw it completely change. Now it's a hippy-dippy granola community. You know, my brother was he was the superintendent of facilities there for the city. And he is to the right of Genghis Khan. Okay, and you know my brother was an engineer, and he, during COVID, it was the last straw. He finally just said, these people are so freaking incompetent. They brought him in, they started crying. True story. In the middle of COVID, everybody remember a thing called COVID? Do you remember that? Because America apparently forgot. You know, that's the problem. When you study history, your amnesia gets erased. And he went in there, and the mayor started crying. He's in the alphabets too, you know what I mean? And he starts crying and saying, "You need to do something." My brother goes like, I'm buying Purell in 55-gallon drums, okay? And I posted in every facility building, wash your hands, do this and this. And they go, "What about masking?" My brother's like, my father was a physician and surgeon, and he would have told, his key was, wash your damn hands. America does. Any of you been to an airport in the last 20 years? People come out, guys come out of that stall and walk by the damn sink. Americans, wash your damn hands, for God's sake, you know. But anyway, neither here nor there. So when you ask me to talk about history, this is exactly the issue, because we don't teach it anymore. Nobody knows it. My degree is political science, and which is history. I mean, it just from a political perspective. But I was always fascinated. I can remember as a little kid, You know, my one great aunt telling me about how my great grandfather, Bolivar Beaver, had a guy work for him named George Washington Carter in Kansas, you know, and I was always fascinated by these stories. You know, they called him Georgie. You know, if you read the history of him, he moved to Kansas with his ex-slave wife, and they were accepted, and Bolivar Beaver hired him first, gave him a ride in a cart. That's how they met, gave him a ride, and they hired him, you know. And, you know, German Scots, you know, they came here for freedom, and they kept thinking everybody should be free, you know. So, and I've listened on my dad's side, the Swedish side, Anderson. If you ever go to the Smithsonian, you'll see all these pictures of the Sioux. Those are the John Anderson collection. That's my great uncle. So, and I was like, God, I was always, so I had my grandmother, who was born in the sod hut in Valentine, was always, I'm hearing all these stories, so I've been fascinated by history all my life. So here I am growing up in Flagstaff, which is, talk about crazy hit. Arizona, guys, is whack. We have got the craziest history going all the way back. I mean, you know, it's so funny because, you know, you go to our board of supervisors, you colonizers. Who the hell's a colonizer? What do you mean? Go up to the cliff dwellings, you know, the Anasazi, the Hohokam, all the canals up in Phoenix. They're all gone. Those people disappeared. We don't know where. Was it disease? Was it invaders? Was it the Hopi came in? Well, Hopi means peaceful one. So when the Navajos came in, where I grew up, northern Arizona, the Navajos are Inuit. What is Inuit? What's another word for it? Eskimo. They were colonizers. So the Hopi went to Texas and hired a mercenary tribe called the Tewas, T-E-W-A. Well, they didn't read their Machiavelli, because Machiavelli says the danger with hiring a mercenary is after they win, they do what? They say. So now all the ruling elite in the Hopi tribe they're you know, like Celestua, Tiwanwatiwa. You know, well, my mom was a Western artist. She loved that art. And one of the big Hopi artists there, Celestua, you know, Tiwa, T-E-W-A. It was from the warrior class. When I lived on the res, you know, of course I grew up with Hopis in Navajo and Flagstaff. So you have this tremendous history that goes all the way back. I mean, how did Arizona get to be? You know, you study it. They go, well, you colonize. Well, actually, let's blame some damn Spaniards for fun. How about that? There's a colonizing crew. Although nobody's a bigger colonizer than Islam, and you're not allowed to say that. You know, but the point.
And they are busy.
Huh?
Sure.
The Islams are busy.
They never stop. You know, side note. See, people take me on these side trips, and my brain goes there. My wife will go, why didn't you stay on topic? I said, because you weren't there to tell me. So, after 9/11, I was the director of education for the Law Enforcement Television Network out of Dallas. We satellite broadcast, but I also was running something called the Street Survival Seminar, which was a nationwide officer safety program. So after 9/11, we put a block in our officer safety program, and I went back out. Instead of running it, I wanted to teach it, because I wanted to get actively do my part. And so I go around the country describing terrorism and the history of terrorism and Islamic terrorism, explaining specifically what is the beliefs of militant Islam. And that's the only thing we ever got chided for. The federal government stepped in. CARE went to the feds came to us, and we lost a lot of federal contracts. Because, believe it or not, CARE, who is, by the way, a terrorist organization affiliated, has tremendous pull in BC. They always have. I don't believe half of what I see anyway on the news, but nothing of what I hear out of certain politicians. But anyway, so that's just a side note. But anyway, Arizona, we actually bought it from Mexico. And it's so funny because they say, well, you colonized. Well, no, Polk wanted to buy it. And I always love when people, the way revisionist history is taught, because today, the Mexican-American War was incredibly evil. Well, yeah, Lincoln opposed it, but for a lot of reasons. But if you remember, gang, we had the Louisiana Purchase, but we didn't have what we would call Nuevo Mexico, or that's the New Mexico-Arizona territory. We didn't have California. We didn't have the second half of Texas. Texas was a republic, if you remember. Well, by 1846, Mexico is still claiming Texas. Slave states want Texas brought in to enhance their power and enhance their voting power and also their territory. and Polk was a pro-slaver. Polk was also a realist. We were not a world power. Who were the world powers? Russia? Where were they? Oh, Alaska. England? Where were they? Washington and Oregon. We're claiming Oregon, but they're claiming Oregon. Mexico has gotten their independence from Spain, and they're weak. They've been through throwing government after government after government out. France is sniffing it. France will eventually defeat them, and they'll put in Maximilian, right? They put in an emperor. And people forget that. Oh, Cinco de Mayo, yeah, well, they won one battle. Okay, great. But here's the problem. We really didn't have much of an army. And so Polk kind of pokes the dog, so to speak, in Texas, and we get a war going. So he sends an army here, toward Arizona. And we end up winning the war, as you all know, California essentially, because there was nothing here. When everybody tells you we stole it from Mexico, what was here? What was here in the 1840s? A mission. All right, Mexico is about, it was interesting because you hear all this talk, they end essentially where their border is now. They're nowhere, for instance, you have Texans in here, lots of Texans, right? Okies, I know there's an Okie here.
Half a Texan.
Where's Bob, you're a Texan?
Half.
Half Texan? Whew.
I campaign.
Having lived in Texas, you ask my kids to this day, are you American? They'll go, no, we're Texans. You know, I had to correct them. And then when they were going to school in Texas, that's why I had to keep correcting them. Yes, Republic. It was Republic. It's not anymore, okay? But Texas, let's just take an example. The problem was the Spaniards got stopped by the tribes. The Comanches shut down Spain.
That's right.
You go up Texas, the furthest northern Spanish and then Mexican settlement is San Antonio. They couldn't defeat the Comanche. Yeah, you've all heard of Comancheros. Well, those were essentially renegade Mexicans who were able to deal and barter. Yes, ma'am.
Well, they hid in the Palo Duro Canyon, and then they come riding out and took over everything.
Right. No, I tell you, and this is the thing that's so funny. You have a series when Father Kino came through and set up like our beautiful mission that way, I guess. The mission. Have you been to this wonderful Tubac down the street here? Right? Look at the remains of that. It kept getting destroyed. Huh?
It's a beautiful museum.
It is. You should all go there if you've never been there. Learn your history. Hike the Grand Canyon. Boy. Anyway, so I used to do that in Scouts regularly. Anyway, so they kept getting crushed. They kept getting the Sioux. That's who the Apaches. And it was finally in 1775 a general named Hugo O'Connor. Good Spanish name. But he was of course, he was Irish. There's an old saying, if you find a war, you'll find an Irishman, right? And so sure enough, he was a devout Catholic, and there was a tremendous oppression against the Irish Catholics in the 1700s. So he moved and gotten involved with the Spanish government. He eventually became the governor of Texas territory, but he built Tucson. He created it in 1775. 250th anniversary right now. They're not going to celebrate because he's a colonizer. Anyway, so it's a unique history here. So, but again, there's very little that was between Mexico City and California, and they didn't even develop California really. So you look at these things, you say, okay, after the Mexican-American War, which we crushed them, but we paid them, right? We paid them. Polk had tried to buy it to begin with, but we needed a defense.
Yes.
One of the things, Manifest Destiny gets hammered so negatively nowadays. It was more than any racist thing. It was a defense mechanism. You're on this continent, but you had no way to defend. There was no canal in Panama, right? So to get to that west coast, you either had to do this tremendous land transaction across very hostile territory, or sail around the tip of South America. Very difficult and long voyage. So after the Mexican-American War, we now have Arizona Territory, which was called Nuevo Mexico. It included New Mexico, Arizona Territory, and California. And California had been defeated quite easily. If you listen, we sent our troops west. El Paso, I think, fell without a single loss, if I remember right. In fact, they surrendered the city, if I remember that war. Because I wasn't going to talk about it here, but then on the way down, I thought, well, I might as well, because you guys are in the Gadsden Purchase, right? So you might as well know
And the
about it.
Mormon battalion, I don't think ever fought, but they went all the way to California.
California,
Yeah.
exactly right.
They were gonna
Exactly
fight.
right. So now we have modern Arizona, which is just part of this great territory, and then along comes the Civil War. Were we a southern or a northern state? Guys, no one knows, because we weren't a state. We were just a territory, but we were a southern sympathizer. Most of the development came out of New Mexico, and up there Tucson was a southern state. But a battalion, or maybe a regiment size, a guy named Barnett came out of California in 1862. The furthest west battle in the Civil War is right up at Picacho Peak. Right? Yeah, the furthest west battle, Picacho Peak. It was really a draw. You know, I was always told the South won. Well, nobody, you know, Lieutenant Barnett gets killed. A couple scouts from the north, they back up because they're way the hell out in the middle of nowhere. And then the Southerners said, "What the hell? This is a war?" You know, and they were the Arizona Rangers. It was a militia. And they retreated back to Tucson. And so it was kind of a draw, but it stymied any more Confederate movement. So from the northern side, it was a very successful move, but it had stained Arizona's reputation. The Arizona Territory was now considered pro-slavery and pro-Confederacy, which of course we all know the Confederacy loses. So you keep saying, well, why weren't we made a state earlier? Well, there's one of the rubs. And as time goes on, you know, you got the media, American media is loving Tombstone, for instance. What's happening in Tombstone? Yeah, they're killing each other. You know, we got Billy the Kid running around all over the place. We got people shooting each other and everything, but that wasn't the real rub. Where was the worst, bloodiest family feud in American history?
Missouri?
Nope, no. There's a place called Pleasant Valley. Pleasant Valley, Arizona. And what's so funny, not funny if you were there, we don't know how many people were killed. It was the Tewksbury's who were associated with sheep, and the Grahams who were associated with cattle. And I've actually fought fires in Pleasant Valley. It is gorgeous, right? In Gila County, it's gorgeous. So I guess it's worth killing each other over. I mean, at one point, and here's the thing, my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Dawson's great-grandfather was a cowboy. And he and 2 other guys were heading to New Mexico on a job, and they were riding through, and they got corralled by one of the families and almost hung for being, and again, I haven't been in the 7th grade in a long time. You know, Kennedy got killed on our lunch hour, you know what I'm saying? That's how long ago, 63. So, anyway, Mr. Dawson was telling us about it, and because they were so suspicious, they were going to hang these 3. And they talked their way out of it, and therefore Mr. Dawson was born, anyway, eventually. So, that was good. So then, I'm in junior high, and my football coach, Lamar Haynes, is from Pleasant Valley. And the Haynes family was affiliated with the Tewksbury's, the sheep, okay? And he's telling me all these stories. Well, almost all the male members of both the clans were killed. So we believe the modern estimate between 21 and 50 people, but the people from there believe far more were killed. Like the three ranch hands just trying to transit through. So we had this, and see, nobody knows about it, except America knew about it then. And the question becomes, do you want to bring this ragtag group of criminals in to this country? You know, we all love the Arizona Rangers. Well, I was Highway Patrol. Highway Patrol is the descendants of the Rangers. In 1931, they became the Highway Patrol. But you study the history of the Arizona Rangers, if you murdered a guy in Missouri and wanted to start over, you came here and be a ranger. They didn't know background check back then. You see these pictures of them with their 30-40 Craigs and their 94 Winchesters and everything, and their hats are all tilted, cocked, and they might have just, there's a famous story, that they kind of had a motto, to haul into, over the saddle. It was so much safer to have a guy over his saddle than on the saddle. That's the old joke, And so you think about it, that was just how the reputation was. I tell you why, because just another quick sidelight. When I left Tucson PD and went with the state, we were using speed loaders in Tucson. You guys, all right, you take a revolver and you can reload it in an instant with a speed loader, and they're really great. It's just all 6 bullets ready to go. You just do it and hit the button or punch it, and you got it out, loaded. So I go to the Highway Patrol, and we're in loops. Loops. And we could load 2 at a time if we really got it down. And I kept saying, why don't we go to speed loaders? And they go, because the Arizona Rangers use belt loops, boy. You hippie Tucson cops, They always call me a hippie. I'm like, I don't even like hippies. What are you talking about? So it was so funny because I went up on the reservation and all these adventures, and I ended up being the fitness and survival guy for the state of Arizona. That's when I did the Buck Savage series, which was a humorous officer safety series I did, because I did radio in college, and I'm always a clown. I always was the class clown, So it was so funny because then I get there and I said, we've got to go to speed loaders. We've got to do something quicker. And they go, that the Arizona Rangers, I go, wait, I've been researching this. The Arizona Rangers are not the people we need to model. So I wrote it up and set it up the chain so they came down. Okay, so we got speed loaders. Anyway, so that was good. But then we eventually got automatics. And of course, as any state agency, to go from a revolver to automatic only took 7 years. So that was pretty quick. All my federal and state employees know how quick that was. But it's funny because now you finally, in 1912, we now have our copper industries flourishing. And think about the political dynamics of the copper industry. You have the unions and you have the wealthy magnates, the millionaires back then. And it was funny because when I grew up, so much of Arizona was about copper. Copper, it was King Copper. We were the world power until 1983. And Argentina said, we're going to screw them, and we didn't react. And if you remember the riots in Ajo, up in Globe, as the copper industry failed. See, nobody remembers this. We should study this. Killed a little 4-year-old girl. They shot into a trailer of a scab in Ajo, killed his daughter. And so we sent 300 troops down. I just gotten injured in a softball game and made sergeant, and I'm thinking, this is my great chance, except I got hurt in softball. So I'm in the watch commander's office every day doing the national. So I'll be on the phone with NBC, AB. Back when remember they used to do news in the old days when ships were wood again? And so, but it's crazy. And so I just sit there in my cast and tell the media, do my little briefings every day, which was fun. Meanwhile, all my buds are having great adventures. They're fighting miners like crazy. So Arizona gets statehood in 1912, but it has to do certain things. 1912 is the progressive era, right? You guys all know that? Progressive. Remember Wilson, all the happy things that happened? And it's so funny because Arizona was Democrat then. So, but they had to do things like give women the vote to get it, and then they rescinded it. Democrats, right? But it was so funny. Yeah, we'll give women the vote. Yeah, we will. Yeah, we're going to give women the vote. Okay, you can be a state. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Women? Ha ha. No, we're going to let men vote for them, just like in sports. Anyway, so, well, they're consistent, aren't they? Over 100 years later. Yeah. Well, they are consistent in so many ways, sadly. As they formed the state, they made Tucson, if you remember, is a weird, because the Constitution of the United States says all states are guaranteed a what form of government? A Republican form of government. Tucson has a direct democracy. Yeah, because if you live in Ward 1, Ward 5 is going to vote for your representative. You read the Federalist Papers, the principle was to break down democracy in terms of the representation in a representative democracy or constitutional republic to the smallest component. What would be the smallest component for you? Would be, for instance, your school board. You get to choose your school boards, right? You get to choose a mayor if you live in a city, theoretically. You get to use but your ward in the city of Tucson should be a representative of your neighborhoods. But they're not, because they didn't want the Mexican-American community, the Mexican community. You know, there was no Hispanic back then, I know, because my aunt was the daughter of a guy named Neighbor Cruz in Tucson. Neighbor Cruz was he was like a booze distributor, okay? He knew what he was doing. Because he knew what he was doing. So Neighbor, he actually had to come up with a co-op just to fund Mexican businesses. Because the Democrats were suppressing it. When people tell you, well, you're Republican. No, the Democrats have been consistently racist since day one. They just flip who the favored group is. Let's be honest. That's all they do. And this is one of the problems we have when they say affirmative action. Well, wait a minute. You know, this is something I remember from high school. Arguing the issue is, look, what you're saying is now that racism's bad, but it's okay as long as it's being used to cure racism on its face. That's the argument. That's the debate. Yes, it is. And I said, when are we going to stop doing affirmative action? Oh, never will. Well, then you're saying racism is okay as long as you choose who the, yes, okay, well, or at least we know that's the truth. And so we're in this weird paradox. Here it is all these years later, right? We're still fighting DEI, which is just affirmative action. But one of the problems is the politics of Arizona has shifted so dramatically. All right, like I said, we started out Democratic. They fixed Tucson to keep the Hispanic vote or the Mexican vote down. It's still broken. We've sued, as you know, and the Ninth Circuit, the circus, the most reversed political entity in the United States history is this Ninth Circuit. And having been a cop trapped in that environment, as is my Portland amigo, we all have to deal with this. Yeah. Oh, you're hiding up front. Okay. Oh, no.
Doug's in the back.
I'm looking around my amigos here, but there you are, hiding. Yes, sir. There's my Portland.
Doug.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's right. I'm getting new glasses soon. All right, I know it. He's right there now. He's sitting in the. All right, yeah. But how about that Ninth Circuit, right? Are you happy about him? No. Buy him a beer. How about the Ninth Circuit Court? Is it the Ninth?
The Ninth Circuit.
The Ninth.
What about them?
How about them?
Bad.
Wasn't it great being a cop under them?
Oh, just super. I'd go back today. I'd go back today and do it.
Yeah, I tell you what. Now that Trump in his first term, did be able to put some decent judges on there. Hopefully, we can get that all reversed. But it's terrible, and this is one of the problems we also face is we took it to the courts and they said, well, it is legal to have, for instance, the ward system be adulterated into a plebiscite. No, it's not, because I'm guaranteed by the Constitution. And as we all know, the Ninth Circuit never worries about the Constitution. So it's quite frustrating when you see one of the problems we have here is that Arizona, when it was created, was Democrat. And right up until World War II, it was the dynamics were, of course, the mines up north, the lumber industry. And that was a huge industry when I was growing up. Southwest Forest, Flagstaff was a huge lumber town. And as you know, the railways came through. And the railways brought their own industry, and then World War II occurs. And there you see, this is where we swing red. It's so weird. How did we get stuck with red? That was always communist to me. Right? Blue was America. Now what the hell? This is the ultimate liberal joke on Republicans. You're going to be blue or red. We'll be blue. You bastard. records anyway, but anyway. We swung red in World War II. One of the things is, how many of you were born here in Arizona? How many of you were born? What's the typical Arizona crop? All right, so, right? So, if you understand the history in World War II, what happened was Arizona was a wonderful waylay point for B-17s, B-24s, for fighter training. You have all these air bases, you have the Loop, Davis-Monthan, you have them all over Arizona, Fort Huachuca, down south, you have Yuma, you have Flagstaff. We were the big ordnance center up there, Navajo Depot up there. I grew up with bombs going off 20 miles away and you could hear them. It was crazy. It was cool, actually, because every kid's a war hawk historian, right? And Flagstaff, you still have a B-17. You can hike around, and there's one in Mount Eldon. There's one on the peaks themselves, because back then they were ADF. In their navigation system would fly them right into a mountain if they weren't in the right altitude. Because nowadays a lot of it's line of sight. Well, nowadays it's GPS. Everything's GPS. All these pilots today are spoiled rotten. But you know, you figure how far you had to fly back then to go somewhere. Kingman was huge. Winslow. When I started flying when I was a kid, we used to fly out to Winslow because it was a B-17 base. So you had a runway that was like 18 miles long. You could see, you know, you take off from Flag, you fly over Meteor Crater, and there'd be the Winslow Airport, you know, is already reaching out to you. You know, the same thing in Kingman. You know, Arizona was this huge pit, so we got this huge influx of military and all the support personnel that came with it. And with it, a very patriotic, very American group. Meanwhile, you have a guy who's an Air Force general named Barry Goldwater. His dad had been a Jewish merchant that had come here. His mom a very religious Christian, and he was raised Episcopalian. Because everybody goes, oh, he's Jewish. No, he was actually Episcopalian. But they were successful, huge successful, and he was a big bomber, but not a bomber pilot, because he had bad vision. He was a large transport, but big pilot, big guy, General Goldwater. With him came his libertarian politics, right? And those of you that study the nature of it, even our Democrats back then were what we would consider now conservative. You know, go water. Not go Goddard, right? The road runner. Anybody remember Goddard? Yeah, he was in the 60s.
I was there.
Yeah, and he was quite conservative. You know, then we had One-Eyed Jack Williams, you know. But I got to tell you, it was so funny because then Governor Castro's brother was my Spanish teacher at Flagstaff. You know, then he goes, and there's Rose Moffett, the Secretary of State, becomes the governor. And the thing about Rose Moffett, after we threw out Ev Meekin, we finally get a Mormon governor, and he gets impeached, you know, over that stuff by Milstead. See, Arizona's political history is amazing. Because, by the way, you know about ABSCAM in Congress? Arizona had an ABSCAM. And I tell you what, we took down a whole bunch of our representatives up in Phoenix who were taking bribes. True story there. So when anybody says Arizona's always been incorruptible, no, quite corruptible. You know, we're dealing with human beings here, right? Okay. And the thing is, this is one of the problems. You know, Tucson was a big mafia town. Licavoli's, the Bonanos, and Bonanno's grandson's now a Tucson cop, right? How funny is the irony? Yeah, that mafia, they respect the law, you know, anyway, but it's funny. But Bonanno's house was in in Midtown when I was a rookie cop. There was always a car parked in front with two guys in it. Wonder who they were. But anyway, this is the amazing thing about Arizona, because you see this transition as the military personnel, and they bring their families out. People move to Arizona because a magic thing happened: air conditioning. Yeah, air conditioning. It's interesting how science and politics go hand in hand so much. Because when I lived down here, everything was a swamp box. How many of you have ever lived in a swamp box? All right, for those of you not familiar, it's an evaporative cooler. It's a big square box. You're always having to change the damn pads in it. It gets clogged. In August, when the monsoons hit, they don't work. So you lose a lot of weight from sweating to death. Oh my God. But the beauty of it was, once AC came in, we literally, you know, at any given time, we were the fastest growing city in the United States, Tucson, this area. And it's been amazing. But at the same time, like I said, in 1979, when those college kids got the vote, the dynamics of the state altered horribly. Because the teachers were suddenly controlling the political atmosphere. And what happened was, at the same time, as Epstein in his book, Joseph, not the other Epstein, he wrote in his book, The Decomposition of Sociology. And I remember reading this years ago, where he was the I believe he's the Rutgers chairman of sociology. He described how sociology went from a science to a political activism. And he called it the decomposition of sociology. That was totally captured by the left, and no longer, it's literally politicized. Criminology, for instance, went from classical criminological theory, where you have a choice and you commit a crime, you make that choice. You're a human being, an individual. Free will, right? Well, when I was in college, and my Dean Rojek, he was what we call a social conflict theorist. Another word for it is called Marxism. Is that right? Yeah, right. That crime is created because you political oppressors create laws that pit the haves against the have-nots, that force the have-nots to commit criminal acts to literally exercise their sense of freedom and justice, that they are actually rebels against this alliance of an empire of evil. You know, hey, you guys say, Smith, you're silly. That's what our board of supervisors believe. What?
You sound like AOC.
Social conflict theory, girl, all the way. And two guys named Cressy and Sutherland wrote a criminology book where they took Marxist theory and they translated it into sociological theory. That's the textbook I used in criminology, Cressy and Sutherland. Okay? And that book was so slanted against classical theory. You don't commit a crime, we force you to commit a crime. You're the victim. And you know what happens to the real victim in this scenario? They're whited out. They're not in the paper. They're not in the essay. They don't matter. And you see this time and again. Just like this dirtbag that got his ass deported the other day. Oh, it's all about process. He's been through 2 court rulings where the judges said, you're an asshole and you're a gangster, but I'm a gang member, I can't go back. Oh, okay, then you can stay. No, how does that work?
Be part of the community.
How does that work? So here's the problem we face in terms of the modern era. As we grew exponentially fast. The state, seriously, it's just, you guys think about how many times have you how many of you have been here 30 years? Boy, you guys are rookies here. All right, I tell you what. But how many times has Pima County or, Tucson or Green Valley or Sahuarita been one of the fastest growing communities in the United States? Yes, ma'am.
I did 60 years in Arivaca, and I had a evaporative cooler the entire 60 years. So.
God bless you. I tell you, you go straight to heaven. Oh, man. And in August, I'm telling you, when the humidity goes up here, this swamp box, you might as well just go and stand under your faucet, and just, damn. But the problem we face today, guys, and I know I got to wrap this up here, but the problem we face today is that our political activism is more important than ever, because what we're seeing here, we're seeing a sea change in that Hispanic community, number one. Because the Mexican-American community especially, and I'm going to just speak to that community, when you call somebody an Hispanic, that's a race. My aunt, Hilda, like I said, whose dad had created this, and tried to resist the Democrat machine here, she hated the word Hispanic because it was a racist term in their linguistics. And what's worse is the Mexican culture is a unique culture. The Cubano culture is a unique culture. The Puerto Rican culture is unique cultures, and you're denying them. Imagine coming up to a Scotsman and go, well, you're a European, and he's a Scotsman, he'd punch you. An Irishman buy you a drink, then punch you. It's just how it is, right? But it says, I'll never forget, years ago, I was reading a thing where, in an article, and it really got me focused into it, where a guy was talking about Great Britain itself, you know. And I never realized the Welsh and the, what are the other, you got the Scots, the Welsh, yeah, but also Cornish. Yeah, and he said, go walk into a Cornish bar and call them a Welshman and you're in a fight. And I thought, well, what kind of thing's that? Then I played rugby and I understood it all, you know. So, but the thing is this, gang, I don't want people to lose their cultural heritage. I'm proud of my Swedish side, I'm proud of my German, Scots side, you know, Clan Scott. I looked it up one day. We're the ones that turned in Wallace. What the hell is that about? I mean, I always thought, I'm watching that movie, loving it. Then I studied Clan Scott. I'm like, well, what the hell? Yeah, Braveheart. We're the ones that said, here he is. He's a Highlander. We were Scott. The Clan Scott's lowlands. We were horse thieves, and anyway, but that's all right. We did a lot. Well, Sir Walter Scott was it. But, yeah, well, at least we're claiming it. But here's the thing, guys. You know, I want you to be proud of whoever you are, but I want you to be proud of your community. I want you to fight to gain it back, because now we're getting the Hispanic community. It was so funny. A year and a half ago, we had a group there at Marana High School doing a registration for the seniors, right? And almost every boy signed up to be a what? Republican. What the war on boys has done is create a whole new generation of conservative males. It's really ironic. And I think it's amazing, because this is the kind of thing where they're activists, you know, they're going to be involved. But as last November, I went and spoke to the college Republicans. And that's the fastest growing club on campus. So that was great. And there's women, men, everybody. And so we got to support our candidates. We got to support, you know, like Cheryl's trying to, and she's bringing youngsters with her, you know. Youngest PC in Tucson is who? In King County.
Well, she was in the state committeeman at the time. She was 17 when she applied, and by the time she turned 18, July 3rd, she was elected as a precinct committeeman in the declared election.
Yeah, I love that. That's the future. We got to get it. But I'm just telling you, the now is you people. And I want to say this again. History is created, I think, by a very narrow number of people who are activists who fight. And you guys here, this group, United Republicans, have fought and fought and fought. You're amazing people. And that's what we need more of. At the same time, you know, one of the things that I realized when I was the chairman is money. We got nothing from Phoenix. We got nothing from the National. Got nothing. So you've got to go and, you know, reach in if you got the extra bucks, support your politicians, support what you believe in, but also, you know, stand up. This group, you know, the flag waves, all these things. It's always amazing to me down here what you people do. 105 degrees, and there's a, you know, this group of people, white-haired warriors out there, and I love it, you know. And so that's it. I think history's made day to day. Let's keep, you know, keep preaching. I do believe, for instance, that the grandsons of all those miners are going to vote Republican. It was so funny when I got in the truck to come down here today. We're getting ready to go on a camping trip and see the grandkids. And the guys next door, some inspectors were there. My buddy next door, he was a Homeland Security guy. He got transferred to the Carolinas, so he sold his house and they're doing inspection. And they all came out and they saw all my right-wing stuff on my truck. And they're like, hey, we love your stickers, man. You know, hey, America. Buy a beer, but you guys, it's only 9 in the morning. But anyway, so the gang, you know what, again, like freedom's got to be something, as our beloved Reagan told us, it's one generation deep. You got to protect it, you got to fight for it. The history of Arizona shows that things can change, but this guy named Trump, he's rocking the world. He's come back with over $1 trillion in deals. Let's just see how much the left. And meanwhile, they're defending those rapists and violent dirtbags. I use the word asshole too much. Except there was a great book, The No Asshole Rule, that was a #1 bestseller. So it kind of feel good using that word. But anyway, you know, you guys are awesome. Thank you for everything. Thank you for letting me talk about my favorite state. But again, guys, let's make it red again.
Let's make it red.